Hello and welcome to the podcast you're listening to. It is all about sports. I'm Scott again this week, and this week we'll be talking about the Dolphins, Dan Marino, and Cameron Wake. First of all, today is March 5th, Wednesday, March 5th, and it's still winter up here in Delaware, still snow on the ground, still bitter cold. As I've mentioned before in past podcasts, I can't wait to move back to Florida. But I'm here in Delaware for now. But anyway, that's what we'll be talking about. So we're going to get right to it. And what I want to talk about, start off with, is just basic Dolphins news this week coming up. As NFL fans know, Monday is the deadline for free agency. What I should say, free agency starts. So the rest of this week and this weekend are pretty important to the Dolphins. As we all Dolphins fans know, it's pretty important that the first thing that we do is upgrade our line, or offensive line, I should say. But today I'm going to talk mostly about the defense, and we'll get into that maybe next week, something like that. It'll be in another podcast. I really enjoy these podcasts, talking especially about the Dolphins, things that I really like talking about, like Dolphins and boxing and different kinds of sports. But anyway, especially the Dolphins, because anybody that reads any of my material on my website or follows me at all knows how much I love the Dolphins. And, of course, Dan Marino was my favorite player. But anyway, let's just talk right now about this weekend and what I think the Dolphins should do and what would be disastrous, I think, if they don't do. So, first of all, I think that we're going to talk, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the defense. I'm glad that they signed Brent Grimes. I think that was a smart move. Obviously, any Dolphins fan probably thinks that's a smart move. That's a no-brainer. He was a Pro Bowler, played great, and he had a good season, and there's no reason to think he couldn't do it again. I also think that they ought to try to sign Dimitri Patterson, who also played great last year, only in 4 games, but he obviously looks like a ball hawk. He was an awesome player, and of course we need him playing in a division that we play in, especially with the Patriots. And their passing game. But more importantly, I think what they have to do, in my opinion, and I wish I had a hotline right up to Mr. Hickey's office so that I could say, hey, maybe you should sign Big Paul Solia. He's one of the best in the game. He's a run stuffer. And the same thing with Starks. I would love to see them keep both of those guys. They're top players. The run defense was not that good last year, but I really don't think it was them. Part of it was scheme and their technique. Last year they did a lot of twisting, a lot of stunts up front that I remember seeing, and it really took the players out of position. Big Paul Solia and Randy Starks. Anytime you get those guys going sideways, in my opinion, that's not a good thing. That was just an observation from me. Somebody who watches every play of every Dolphins game for the past, ever since DirecTV came out, unless I'm in the bathroom, relieving myself after some beers. But anyway, which I have while I watch the Dolphins game, I might have had. But yeah, so I mean that's what I think. I think they should try to keep both of those guys, but definitely at least one. If one of those guys gets away, like I said, that would be disastrous, in my opinion. I can't see who you're going to bring in and plug in that's going to be better than those guys. So, but we'll get into that probably next week after the free agency starts, and talk more about Dolphins, the offensive line, running back. Obviously, I think they should have an upgrade at the running back as well. But the two things, for this weekend, I would say at least sign one of their defensive tackles, and then also figure out what they're going to do with that Wheeler guy. I would say, just cut him, but, I guess it's just not that simple. But anyway, on to this article about Dan Marino, that was on our site, and it was called What's Next for Dan Marino. This was written by James Folsom, who's a friend of mine, who also contributes a lot of content to this website, and I just want to say thanks. Thanks to James. I will have his picture on the website soon, and recognition for him because he helps me out a lot. But anyway, I read the article. It's been on there. It's got plenty of likes on it from Facebook. But there's some things I disagree with about it. But here it goes. I'll go ahead and read it, and then maybe you'll give me your comment. And at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about Cameron Wake. It was an article about 3 months ago, maybe, on the site that got plenty of likes and some comments about it. But anyway, here we go. Dan Marino was tough to sack when he played quarterback for the Dolphins. He had such a quick release that defensive players had to be really quick to get to him. But after 11 seasons as an analyst on CBS, the pregame and postgame show, Dan and Shannon Sharp let go to make room for the newly retired Tony Gonzalez. This could lead Marino to working with the Dolphins in some way, which is, in my opinion, would be good. I would love to see Dan in some way working for the Dolphins. The Dolphins wanted Marino to join the front office before he decided to become a TV personality. Now that he's no longer a TV personality, could that make a place for him in South Florida? Well, I think so. Could he possibly join the coaching staff? I don't think so, James. I very doubt that he'll join the coaching staff as quarterback's coach. But let's go on with the rest of the article. With the coaching staff, which has had a few openings recently in the wake of the Richie Incognito, Jonathan Martin scandal. Good riddance to both of them. Now that the independent findings of Ted Wells have also implicated Mike Pouncey and John Jerry in the bullying of Martin, it is possible that the third-year quarterback Ryan Tannehill will be throwing behind a whole entire new offensive line. This might not be the best time for that. Well, an offensive overhaul was needed. So yeah, I could see, we just need talented players on the offensive line. Dolphins offensive line gave up 58 sacks last year. So give credit to Tannehill for hanging tough and hanging in there. Which, by the way, I believe in Ryan Tannehill. So Ryan Tannehill is entering his third year in 2014. Many feel that by year 3, the quarterback had better show that he either has what it takes to be a winning quarterback in the NFL or get used to holding a clipboard. Well, that could be the case. It could be the case. Sometimes guys are late bloomers, but we'll see. Going into the season after having played poorly and choking away a playoff spot last season would be difficult behind a line he can trust. This has potential. This has potential for disaster. Yeah, that's true. There's no other way of putting it. He did choke it away, but it really wasn't all his fault. He did have a bad second game, or was it the first game? It's been 3 months now. But one of the games he didn't play bad. One of the games he really played bad. But it wasn't all his fault. I mean, it was a poor play calling, poor execution. It was just poor everything. The coaching staff definitely should get some blame for that. And of course, some people have been fired. So anyway, on with the article. Tannehill could probably use a great quarterback like Marino on the staff to help him with reading defenses and getting through his progressions quicker. Not to mention getting the ball out quicker. No one did that better than number 13 did. While that's true, I don't see Dan becoming, a quarterback's coach of any kind, for that matter, myself. I mean, it would have to be probably upper level management or something like that. Well, hopefully the Dolphins will get to keep Pouncey and Jerry after all the dust settles. I don't know. I would be in favor of trading Pouncey. I know that might sound crazy to some people, but and I don't even like John Jerry, so he should go. Pouncey's a good player, but he's caused a lot of problems, and he's caused a lot of problems on the field too. A lot of dumb penalties. So you have to think about everything. But you can't replace the whole line in one season. So to have a guy in the locker room like Dan Marino, who was a leader for many years, like Marino was, could only add to the development of Ryan Tannehill. Sometimes great players have a difficult time as coaches. Many times they don't have to rely on outsmarting people because they were better players than everyone else, such as Dan was. He was a great player, but could he be a great coach? Not so sure. I know that Dan knows football, but can he relay that to someone else? So they can't pass a lot of wisdom on to players who are not as gifted as they were, I should say, who need to know how to get the most out of their limited talents. But Tannehill seems to have talent, which I agree, James, he does. He just needs to know how to best use it. Could Marino be the one to help him in that area? Yeah, I think he could. But I just don't see him becoming, a quarterback's coach or being down on the sideline. And, maybe I'm wrong. If he was, I think that would be awesome. I'd be all in favor of it. But Miami needs to come up with something to get the fans excited too. And if Dan joined the coaching staff, of course, that would get the fans excited. Anytime Dan Marino does anything, it gets the Dolphins fans excited. Judging by all the empty seats in the stadium in recent years, and that's really not fair. There were some games where they had some full houses, but yeah, overall, I guess you're right, James. The Miami Heat has just about completely turned Miami into an NBA town. Yeah, I guess so. That's what happens when you win championships. And the Dolphins haven't won a championship in 40 years, 41 years, whatever it's been. I forget the count. At their core, though, the city is still a football city. They just need to be reminded of this. One way to remind them is to start putting the ball in the end zone more often. And it was never more fun to be a Dolphins fan than when Marino was shattering passing records and breaking scoreboards. We're not suggesting he can turn Tannehill into Brett Favre or even another Dan Marino. Hell no, no way. But if he can get him a bit closer, that would be fantastic. Right now, Miami fans will settle for the Dolphins getting back to the playoffs. It has been too long without a playoff game in South Florida. You're right, James. To be exact, it's been since 2008, which they lost. Dolphins lost that game to Baltimore in the playoffs, and we remember that because it was the last time they were in the playoffs. But it's been 5 years. So, James, you're right. What can you say? As a Miami Dolphins fan, of course I want to see them in the playoffs. And I was thoroughly convinced when they were 8-6 that, they were going to be in the playoffs. But I blame that a lot on Philbin. Actually, he was the coach, and he just failed, really, in my opinion, to get them fired up for the last two games. And how do you lose to the Jets and the Bills? But that's another podcast that we'll have at another time. But anyway, lastly, the last article we'll be going over is Cameron Wake is Dolphins defensive star. This article was published on December 28th. So I think they were still, maybe they were they were still in the playoff hunt, I believe then. But anyway, this was a good article. This was done partly by James Folsom and by myself as well. We both contributed to this article, and this is Cameron Wake is one of my favorite Dolphins on the team as we go forward now. So here we go. Cameron Wake is quite a story. He has emerged as one of the NFL's best defensive ends, even though he was not drafted. He was cut by the New York Giants as an undrafted free agent, then made his professional debut 2 years after his last college game for the Lions. The British Lions, that is. Wake played his high school ball at DeMatha, if I'm saying that right, high school, a rather famous high school in Maryland, known for its basketball more than football. From there, he went on to play his college football at Penn State University. In college, he played a lot of linebacker, but he also did play some end some of the time. He ended his college career with 191 tackles, 24 for a loss, and 8.5 sacks. Not bad. Not great, but not bad. Still, this was not enough to get him drafted by an NFL team. In May of 2007, he signed with the British Columbia Lions of the CFL. This is where he switched from linebacker to defensive end. And he made an immediate impact as he was named the CFL's Defensive Player of the Week in the opening week of the 2007 season. Well, I've got to correct that. It's got like 3 zeros instead of 2007. It's 20007 in the article. Boy, messed that up. In his CFL debut, he had 3 sacks and 7 tackles. He wound up leading the CFL in sacks in 2007 with 16, and again in 2008 with 23. That's pretty awesome in any league. He was also named Defensive Player of the Year both seasons, as well as becoming the first CFL player to be named Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. With those 2 stellar CFL seasons, the NFL was interested in Wake. He had heard from 17 teams and worked out for 8, deciding on the Miami Dolphins before the 2009 season. He made his first start in Week 4 of 2009 against the Buffalo Bills and responded with 2 sacks on the day. From that point, he has been a fixture on the Dolphins' defensive front line. Wake has had 2 seasons with double figures in sacks with the Dolphins. 2010, he ended up with 14 sacks. In 2012, he had 15. This season, he has 8.5 with 1 game left to go. And he also has a tackle for a safety, 2 forced fumbles. Wake already seems to come up with a big play, always seems to come up with a big play at the right time. Yes, I believe he ended up with 9.5. I'll have to check that. But this is an article when we're still 1 game to go. So we're basically going through the article, ad-libbing, and giving you my opinion as well as we go along. So it's an interesting story. Wake's story was an interesting story. He was known as Derek Wake while he played at Penn State. Derek is his first name, his real first name. But he was mistakenly given a name tag that had the name Cameron, his middle name, on it while he worked as a personal trainer after being released by the Giants. An agent met him at the gym and gave his tapes to the BC Lions, and as Cameron, Since then, he's been known as Cameron Wake. Since he has been known as Cameron, his career has taken off. He figured Derek wasn't having a good career, so he switched to Cameron, who was a pretty good football player, and he decided to stick with it. Pretty good idea, Cameron. The book on him, according to the Giants when they cut him in 2006, was he was a great athlete, but can't make a play. Wonder what the guy who wrote that is doing now. Boy, I'm telling you, I don't know. Wake had a promising career as a mortgage broker in front of him after he was cut, but decided his 9-to-5 job was keeping him from his workouts, so he quit. That is when he got a job as a trainer and was discovered by an agent. He is the story of a guy who did not give up and took a chance on himself and made it. People could take a lesson from him. Boy, this is true, isn't it? What was it that Henry Ford said? If you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. And that's exactly what Cameron Wake did. He thought he could, and he did. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. We could use some feedback if you want to chime in and let us know how you feel about how we're doing, what we're talking about. If you'd like to join in sometime, just drop us an email. We'll get you on podcasts with through Skype, something like that. Till then, sign up for our newsletter. I'd like to give you some information, our take on Florida sports, and of course our throwback articles every week. Scott Sports Stories. We have them on there about Muhammad Ali, Babe Ruth. Check out our YouTube channel. We're putting a lot of stuff on there. Try to make it more interesting. Until then, I'll see you next time. I am Scott, and I am out. And have a great day.